Welcome to A Kind Life. Today I'm very grateful to have Yasmine Lintvelt here. How are you going, Yasmine?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Now I'm speaking to you from Adelaide. Is that correct?
That's right. Adelaide, South Australia, for anyone who may be not in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say Adelaide is one of my favorite places. I've got a couple of vegan friends over there and I'm extremely jealous. I've never been to your vegan festival yet, so that's definitely on the list.
Hopefully it will continue going ahead. It definitely happened this year. It's still up in the air for the next year, but stay tuned and hopefully it will be bigger and better and you might make it.
Absolutely. No, I look forward to it. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, well, my name is Yasmine. Hi. I am a vegan chiropractor who lives in Adelaide. I've been practicing for about 6 years or so as a chiropractor. I studied in Melbourne for 5 years and I have, I guess, really, it's just my life is just my 5 fur babies and chiropractic and spending way too much time scrolling through Instagram. So
5 fur babies, please explain. I would like to hear the details.
So we have a couple. My partner had a Hungarian Vizsla, which is a dog, before we were actually together. We share a birthday, which he thinks is hilarious. And after that, we also got a Dalmatian. So this was actually before I learned more about how breeding kind of worked, which is something that I'm a bit more, I prefer to go for rescues, but our first couple of animals together were actually ones that were bred. And we've got as well, I had Kira, so she's a cat, just a domestic medium hair, black and white cat. She's got partial paralysis. She had a couple of seizures as a kitten, so her legs don't work very well. And she's about 13 now, so I've had her for quite some time. She's done very, very well considering everything she's got going on. So I had her, then there was Charlie the Vizsla, Archie the Dalmatian. We have a Maine Coon, which is one of those really big cats. He weighs about 10 kilos. He's a little bit fat at the moment, so we need to work on that. He was, again, from a breeder that was, again, pre-that, but our following cats have been rescues. So we've also got Bernard. We did have Basil. Unfortunately, we lost him, though he was a rescue. So Bernard's the second rescue cat that we've had.
Wow, amazing. It sounds like your days would be full. That's what probably gets you out of bed in the morning, I'm guessing, is parent duties.
Yeah, pretty much. Because I had to read through the question. I went, what gets me out of bed in the morning? Well, the dogs need to go to the toilet. That's the primary thing that needs to be done because cleaning it up is no fun. Although cleaning up after the cats is, again, not great. Actually, Jeffrey, the Maine Coon, he likes to jump on the table and try to eat the plants, and then he throws the plants up. So that was yesterday. That was a fun experience. Thank you, Jeffrey. So the animals do tend to actually be what gets us out of bed in the morning and starts the day off, because they're always on our mind. We're always thinking about, as we do with our fur babies, our children. You're always accommodating for them. You're making sure, you're not out too late doing stuff because you need to be back to make sure that they're okay. And also there's no messes.
And so what got you interested in becoming a chiropractor?
So I actually always wanted to be a chiropractor since I was a really little kid. And that it was actually my second cousin was our chiropractor as a kid. And I saw him helping all of these people. And even when my dad put his back out, they went down, they got adjusted, and it got my dad out of a really bad place of pain. And so I saw that immediately helping my family. My little brothers got adjusted as well. So I've got an older sister and 2 younger brothers. There's about a 7-year gap with one, 10-year gap with the other. So I was able to see them grow up and the benefits that they had from it. And I walked in and my dad was doing this sort of stretch with my little brother. I'm like, what are you doing? I don't know if he likes it, because he's squirming around as babies do. And he said, it's okay. The chiropractor told us to do it. It helps to stretch him because he got all, squished up in mum's tummy. And so it's going to help him. And I'm like, wow, you can help anyone as a chiropractor. That's awesome. So I want to do that. There was a couple of other things along the way where I went, wanted to be a hairdresser at one point, but chiropractic really stuck along there. I wanted to be a vet, but then mum pointed out that I'd also have to put animals down, and I went, well, I don't want to do that because I want them all to live. So I suppose even at a young age, there was that kind of connection of, well, why would I do that? I can live forever, right?
And so is there any part of your profession that you integrate veganism?
Definitely, it's come up more and more. And over the years, I've become more and more vegan, as you tend to. You know, you sort of float into the world depending on what that catalyst was for you. The more vegan you become, the more it comes up in daily conversation. And especially because chiropractic can really tie into bodily inflammation, you know, people who have chronic back pain and chronic headaches, and there's often a lot of other comorbidities going on as well. A lot of the people that I see are quite unhealthy. Most people, they don't want to hear it. If they're coming to a chiropractor, they kind of want, you know, a couple of cracks, they're out, and they can just continue moving about their life without having to do anything themselves. Most people don't realize that in order to be healthy, it is constant work. You have your body 24/7. It does take 24/7. And that is literally 24/7, making sure you get enough sleep and all of those things to actually recover and rehabilitate your body. So when you have these discussions at work, it's a little bit trickier because you are coming from a health perspective, and as an ethical vegan, it's really hard to not throw on these other things. And also, you should understand because of this and this and this and this, because that's immediately how you lose business and then you have no livelihood. But I've definitely been able to have some conversations with some people about it, and, you know, just coming up, I'm a chatty chiropractor. You have some that it's quite a quicker process, but I spend a little more time with people and have more conversations. And so we'll, you know, get to know each other a bit, and most of them know that I am vegan. And so if they have questions about it, they will feel free to ask. Or I find other vegans who've come in, and it's like I tend to attract other vegans. But I know so few vegans in Adelaide. Most of them are on Instagram. Yet as a chiropractor, some will come in and they're all embarrassed, like, oh, so, you know, how are you? Because I'm trying to work out, they're talking about like a skin issue or something like that. I'm like, oh, well, you know, do you eat a lot of dairy? Or, and they go, oh, I'm actually vegan. Like, that's awesome. So am I. We can be best friends now. So I have definitely attracted a few vegan or plant-based people just as a vegan chiropractor, and it's like a total accident that it happens. So there's, I suppose, you know, you make a few sort of connections, they feel really relaxed and comfortable and can share their health history, and then other ones that you sort of try to encourage them to lead a slightly healthier lifestyle, let them know that it will reduce inflammation too, because I do believe that it is one of the healthiest diets that you can adopt. You can't out-eat every disease that exists, even though so many of them can be triggered, and so many of them are triggered and related to what we consume. It's not necessarily going to be the cure-all and all of diseases. So for most things, yes, it will fix or reverse or at least maintain a lot of issues. But there are those occasions where, of course, you can't out-eat a disease.
Yeah.
So, no, it definitely comes into conversation at times. So.
And what was your vegan story, or how did you become vegan?
I have this, I want to say vivid memory, but most of my memories as a kid are not fantastic. But I suppose there was the wanting to be a vet, knowing that I would have to put people down, put animals down. So there's these little, I suppose, splatterings throughout my life where I was aware of animals and caring about them. And I had a friend who was a vegetarian in high school. And I do wish that, because I remember asking her about why she was vegetarian. And I think that she was pretty used to people kind of giving it the brush off, as often happens. And we didn't go into a huge conversation about it, but I went home and I asked Mum, you know, if there was any way I could be vegetarian, because I was talking to a friend about it. And she went, oh, well, I wanted to be vegetarian, but your dad wouldn't let it happen. And so it just didn't happen. It's going to be too hard, too many different meals. And it was kind of shut down. And I was, oh, okay. Like, I guess I hadn't really thought about that. But we weren't huge animal product eaters as it was. And I mean, if you think back on it, I guess, yes, there were a lot of meals. Most meals probably had something in it. But to me, it was never the star of the dish. My mum is not a good cook. Like, I'm talking like the 2-minute steaks cooked for like 15 minutes and cardboardy. So we were eating this awful stuff that you just kind of, you're chewing and chewing, and you couldn't get it to a good spot to be able to swallow it. So my experiences with it was never very good. It was mostly sort of oven food. So which probably made it easier when it came to actually transitioning out of it, because I'd never really enjoyed much of it anyway. And yes, there'll be the childhood favorite meals that you might have, like chili con carne, but you know, normally it's the beans and everything that you're really wanting, and that spiciness. And so it's quite easy to adapt a lot of those things. So it was something that I just went, oh, well, mum said I can't do it, so I won't do it. And then going through university, and I'd moved over with my partner at the time, and it became towards the end, it was like 5.5-year relationship. It became quite a toxic relationship, and one that probably was on that more like abusive side of things towards the end. It did not end well. But as I got out of that, I went, whoa, I can now do what I want. I'm not cooking with anyone else in mind. I'm my own person. I don't have to buy any of these other things that I don't want to, so I can actually start to move that way. And so I never watched any of these films or anything. This was more just knowing you didn't eat animals if you like them. And this was something that I'd always been interested in. So it was my final year of uni, and I sort of started to transition, but I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know any other vegos. I didn't follow anyone on Instagram, and social media wasn't really, I guess, because my circles of social media, it wasn't pointing me in the right direction. So it was sort of fumbling, and I probably had a longer transition than a lot of people because I didn't know anyone. It was sort of self-initiated. And it was a little bit hard when I went to, I actually did 5 weeks of locum, not locum, but my, now I'm forgetting the word for it. Sounds about right. Practice, like practice over in New Zealand for 5 weeks for my placement. And that was very, very difficult being in, I suppose, a different country, even though it was only New Zealand and it's pretty similar to Australia, trying to cook. And so a lot of the stuff I was going through was more vegetarian. The chiropractor I was working for, when I said, oh no, I'm transitioning to vegetarian and vegan, he was like, no, you have to have this. And it was at the start, so you let yourself get pressured into it. And there's a few other things that I'd cooked, and by the time I came back, I'm kind of done with that. And so over that next year, I started to cut stuff out. It took me a long time to realize, even though I'd cut out dairy years before that, it took me a long time to realize that whey protein was dairy. And I kicked myself for that. I was sitting on the floor. I'd moved back to Adelaide, so I was practicing as a chiropractor, sitting on the floor in the kitchen where the whey protein was. I picked it up and I looked at it and went, okay, so here's me trying to be vegan, and I've been having this protein powder for years, and I cut dairy out to help my skin, and this is milk. Right, all right, cool. Why didn't I realize that earlier? Stupid moment for me, but I guess everyone has maybe had one of those situations. Hopefully it's not just me, and I should know better as an educated professional, but it's just something I hadn't put any thought to. I just was ordering what I had previously, and I didn't know much about like vegan protein brands or anything like that. And so I'd started off with having like broccoli with peanut butter on it and chips for dinner, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to cook tofu, and cooking tofu, like slicing it as thin as possible and then dousing it in soy sauce and then putting it in the oven until it was like you could snap the tofu. And I was like, is that what you do with tofu? Is that how I do it? Is that protein? And I would have cooked it so much that all the protein would have denatured and would have been not beneficial at all. But I'm like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Well done, me. And from that point, it got a lot easier. And when I got worried about like dating as well, because I was still single at this point. But luckily, my partner was really accepting of that. There was still eggs for a bit there, even though dairy and meat was well and truly gone at that point. Although I did go out at the very start of the relationship, and they put cheese on the pizza that I'd asked not for cheese. And I was like, okay, this is like a second date thing. I'll just eat it. And it was not a good idea. It was a bad idea. It was a very bad idea. I ended up getting like a lot of brain fog, and I fell asleep and upset tummy for like the next 24 hours. I was a write-off. So after all of that, I was finally able to kind of go fully vegan, being in a more supportive relationship, and starting to follow a few pages as well on Instagram, which brought more things to my feed. And so it wasn't just about kind of fumbling my way through food. There was more of these connections ethically, because when you start following a couple of hashtag vegan things, suddenly other things appear in your feed that can be really, I guess, traumatic to observe. So I couldn't see these things and continue with the way that I was going. And I've had people go, you know, what if you would be better? Like if someone said, if you start eating meat again, you'll be better, you won't have any other problems. Well, I still wouldn't do it. I would still prefer to have my problems and find another way of managing it, because firstly, I know enough to know that that is not going to cure anything. Even if it did mask some of the symptoms, I cannot ethically do that knowing what happens. And even if you had the most well cared for animals and you still slaughtered them so that I could eat them, that I ethically cannot do that. So it's been this real journey, I guess, of awakening. I think a lot of people feel like they have to do it immediately, and that's very daunting. Like if you don't know what you want and you're kind of going, I know it's the right thing, but I don't know. I know this person watched this movie and they went, you know, overnight vegan. And sometimes I feel kind of bad that I didn't do that. I didn't overnight go vegan. I didn't throw out everything that was there. But even for me, I'm not a wasteful person. So I can't throw out stuff like that, like a lot of people would. I probably would have finished it, or like, I suppose, given it to other people as well as an option as I sort of transition. But it does depend. Like if I had seen that footage first, would I have gone, well, I'm never eating that again. That is out. That is okay. Who can I give it away to? So it really does depend on what you're exposed to, what you're wanting from it, what your purpose is. And some people, they are very much only doing it for their health. Some people, it's only for ethical reasons. Some people, it's for the environment. But for me, it was very much, long story short, I like animals. You don't eat the things that you like. And my only regret about it is I wish that I'd gone vegan sooner. So, yeah.
I think that's a very common feeling amongst our community, you know, is that a lot of us as well went vegetarian initially thinking that we were helping and saving animals, but until you learn about dairy and eggs, then, you know, that's a whole other thing as well. So like you said, it's all about what you're exposed to and what you have an understanding of and are willing to, you know, move past potentially, you know, things that you're telling yourself or justifications before you think, no, I actually want to change and, you know, align my actions with what I believe is right. So how long ago was that for you? How long have you been vegan now?
So it's been, I kind of time it by, I suppose, my relationship with my partner, because even though meat had been cut out earlier and dairy had been predominantly cut out like 5 years before that, other than the protein powder, we're just kind of pretend that didn't happen. So that, I guess, is getting close to a good 5.5 years. I wish I did have an actual day that I could go, no, this is the last egg that I was eating, but it was a convenience of, okay, again, your relationship, if we're going out, there's no vegan options. I didn't know how to make things from the sides. I didn't know how to ask for vegan options when it wasn't there. I just went, well, this is the menu, so that's what I have the option of. They're not going to just take stuff off or sub it, or if they just take it off, then you end up with a piece of bread and some avocado and you're paying $25 for it. So it took me a while to realize that that stuff could be done, and I suppose to be ethically aligned enough that I went, well, no, that's not good enough. I'm either going to find somewhere else to eat, or I will find a way to make this work that doesn't have any contact with any animal products. And so by the time the eggs were out, I don't have an actual day. And I remember I did like an F45 challenge, which is just the fitness. I think most people in Australia know, it's probably all global, but the, you know, workout stuff with the circuits. And they didn't have any vegan friendly stuff. They had a vegetarian option. So I guess I went for the vegetarian. Well, I'm not having any of the dairy. I'll have eggs occasionally with it. But they didn't have really any tofu stuff. So that was very, very unhelpful. And But again, that was very much in the earlier days of that. So it's over 5 years, but I don't have a date.
And what would be like some of your tips for people like yourself? I mean, if you could go back in time, I guess, and give yourself tips, what would they be for when you were looking at transitioning, or, you know, you first understood what was involved and that you wanted to change?
Yeah, I suppose it would be try to find someone who is vegan and is the sort of vegan that you would like to be, because that will help you, I suppose, assimilate that world a little bit better. So if I'd known how to look for someone, if I'd even posted on my Facebook page and said, hey, look, I'm transitioning vegan, rather than being all shy like it was some hidden bad thing that I shouldn't be doing and everyone was going to judge me for. But people tend to, I'd say, you know, people will be judging you because it's not something that they are emotionally ready to do. And it makes them uncomfortable because they have to think about the things that are wrong with the world. And no one likes to think about those things, let alone feel responsible for them in some way or form. So to try not to, you know, take on the emotional burdens of others, it's okay to say that you are vegan. And if someone raises their eyebrows about it, that's an issue with them, not with you. And find some other vegans. And I mean, I lived in Melbourne for 5 years and there's heaps of vegan food there. And there's heaps of lovely vegans over there too that I could have met. And I've more met them in the last 6 months on Instagram. So through like vegan hashtags and follows and all of that. So it has been awesome finding that world. But part of me wishes that I found it then and asked around, even though it wasn't as predominant on social media at the time. So yeah, find someone else and just do the change and read the packagings of everything so you know what whey is.
Dora, I had something very similar where I'd been vegetarian for about 14 years before I went vegan, and I'd never bothered when I was, you know, going to the supermarket and getting breadcrumbs for things. I'd never read the packet. I just assumed breadcrumbs, wheat, you know, all the seasonings, but I'd never read it actually contained anchovies. And I'd never ever read it when I was vegetarian. But when I went vegan, I obviously started reading packaging more. And when I read it, I couldn't believe that, you know, it was probably really only 5 years since I'd moved out of home and, you know, and doing my own food and things. But even in that, you know, it really makes you more aware, like you said, of, you know, there's small things that we just take for granted that we don't actually bother looking into until, you know, you have a reason to. So definitely you can agree there.
Yeah. And imagine if someone had said to you slightly earlier, by the way, check the packaging on everything because you would be surprised. Anchovies in breadcrumbs. What? Why is that a thing? It's like that, like 0.01% milk powder that's in so many things. But why? Why have you done that?
Exactly. And so from what I'm hearing from yourself, Yasmine, it sounds like, you know, fitness and being very, you know, conscious of your health has been something that has been part of your life for quite a long time. Is that correct to say?
Definitely. And possibly even more so since going vegan, because you want to defy everyone's preconceived notions about what vegans are as well. But I guess going into the world of chiropractic, I actually did a personal training course because I went, I know nothing about muscles. I didn't do PE in year 12 and I should have, but by the time I kind of thought about it, and I always knew I was going to be a chiropractor, so I probably could have chosen a couple of other classes that might have given me some more background knowledge in the body. But for some reason, I didn't go into PE and I spent year 12 wishing that I had done that because it would have been really helpful. So in my gap year, I did my personal training course. And from there, I was never really a gym person per se. I'd always been sort of relatively fit, like I'd maybe go for like a run, but I wasn't really involved in a lot of sports. I'd done netball, I'd injured way too many things. I'm so accident prone. No ball sports for me because it's a bad idea. But so there was those little things. I don't come from a fit family who really got me into anything like that. It was just like a little bit of netball, a couple of, you know, things of sport along the way, nothing that had really stuck, but I suppose enough to give me enough fitness to get by, but not to excel at anything really. And so doing the personal training course, I went into it purely going, well, I'm going to be a chiropractor and this will teach me about muscles, not to do with the fitness stuff. And I think I did have a membership with Good Life at the time, because there was one in the city, and getting the bus home from school, I could, go and then walk on the treadmill for a bit. I didn't know what I was doing with the weights, so I didn't really use that gym membership. And doing that course, I kind of went, oh, okay, well, this can actually get me into fitness. And I had ended up being, so this is, I suppose this takes it onto this whole other train, but I've competed in quite a few pageants as well. So I had signed up, I'd never done a lot of modeling or anything. I remember some random strange man stopped me on the street in the city and went, hey, are you a model? Have you thought about being a model? You could be a model. Hey, come down and we'll, so I went down with my dad and, I had some photos taken for a comp card. You end up paying like all this money and you go, wait, have I been scammed? Because I've paid money for this. And I remember him saying to me as well, when we went in, okay, we'll book the photo shoot for your comp card so we have pictures to give people who might want to work with you. We'll do that in a week's time. If you could lose some weight before then you'll, be slimmer for the pictures and that'll be better to give to people. And I went, in a week's time, you want me to lose weight in a week's time? And also I don't need to, even at that age, my parents, I guess, had never put anything on me to body shame me, which I'm very lucky about. And a lot of people haven't been blessed with that, but no one had ever turned around and tried to go, no, you're overweight or anything like that. And I guess that was partially just how my body was and the involvement in fitness and metabolism, all of that sort of stuff. So I was already getting some red flags kind of there, but it did, that stuff aside, it took me into this other world where I ended up signing up for someone, a modeling agency, and I never got any work or did any work with them. I got a text about Miss World Australia was going to be casting in South Australia. So I went along for fun and went, okay, why not? Let's give it a shot. And so this was, I think, at the start of my gap year. And I went, well, I need to be fit. And I was doing my personal training course. And so I actually signed up with one of the people who run the course to do a couple of PT sessions. And I went, I need to be fit because I'm doing this competition and you have to look good for a competition and I want to be strong. And, I'd already, I guess, had a couple of ideas in my head about maybe I didn't look how I should for if I was going to go down that pathway, probably because of what this guy had said about, can you lose some weight in a week's time? So I did a couple of those sessions and that kind of got me actually enjoying the fitness side of things. And I made it to the national final somehow. I was the the first runner-up. So I got second place in South Australia and they decided to send both the first place and the second to the national finals, so that there would be two contestants from SA. And there was a fitness component there. And I realized I wasn't super fit then. And I went, well, I'm probably going to have to be fitter to be a chiropractor. And that whole world there kind of turned to, I didn't win Miss World Australia, by the way, in case anyone was wondering, oh, did she win? What happened next? No, I didn't win. So there were 19 girls in the end who made it to the national finals. So it was cool enough to be one of the, I suppose, top 19 in Australia. And at that point, I would have been 18, 19, but then at 19 years old, moved to Melbourne to study because for me, I went, this is just a bit of fun because I'm going to be a chiropractor. My goal was always, I'm going to go and be a doctor of chiropractic. And I realized that, you needed to kind of be a bit fitter and stronger. And so I kept sort of working towards that. So I worked in gyms. Like the first job that I actually got was as a gym instructor, personal trainer at a gym, more working the front of house as opposed to doing a lot of PT one-on-one with people. But that ended up being my part-time job while I was studying chiropractic. So that was, I suppose, how it all kind of started. I've been involved in the fitness industry now since I was, I guess, 19 years old, closer to 18 because that's when I started the course. And it helped me to get a lot stronger, and then getting out of my course and realizing how physical a job it is and the demands on my body. I went, well, I need to stay strong and I want to be fit. And especially in the last couple of years, it's more been well, no, I want to be an amazing representation of a healthy vegan. And as someone who has some, underlying health issues, I went, well, now I need to prove that I am more than that. I am stronger. I have to be prepared for if I ever need to go down, a surgery pathway or anything else. You need to have muscle, because if you stop, you're only going to lose muscle. If you're bedridden, if you get sick, and especially in these times with COVID, if you go into it unhealthy, you're going to come out of it more unhealthy. So if you go into anything in your life as healthy as you can be, give yourself the best chance at living a long and healthy and happy life afterwards. So it all kind of came together. It all ties into that whole, we get one body, you get one chance on this planet, unless you believe in reincarnation, which I am a fan of, then you just have to look after yourself, because you're not going to get another chance. And if you wait until you've broken down, your chance is kind of gone, because you're always going to have that injury or issue holding you back. Even if you do heal and recover quite well, it's sort of I sprained my ankle, like 15 years ago. It's not as good as it used to be, but I can still function. And everyone kind of seems to have that ailment or issue. And as someone who asks a lot of questions from their patients when they come in, they have all of these issues that they've never done anything to fix or resolve. They just kind of put up with it, and then down the track they end up with degeneration, or they had a fall or an injury, and then suddenly they're getting cortisone in their shoulder and all this other stuff, which increases the likelihood of degeneration and other issues down the track that they're not really well informed of. So being fit, the more I learned about health and fitness and veganism, I went, well, how do I be the best version of myself, the healthiest version of myself, to not only be a representation for the vegan world, but also to keep myself alive to like 130 plus, because I'm a vegan and I'm going to live forever. Science.
Of course, no doubt there. And you did mention that you have some underlying health conditions. Is that something you wanted to chat about?
Yeah, we can definitely have a chat about that. So it's one of those things that you don't know when it really starts, because they are chronic underlying issues. And even having a chat with my gynecologist on Thursday, I had to think what day it is. It's Saturday, for anyone wondering when we're recording. So talking about even things like asthma. Like, I've had asthma since I was a kid. We don't know why people really get asthma. Some people get it, some people don't. Is there familial history? Is it because my mum has asthma? But does mum have asthma because she used to smoke and she still smokes now? So she stopped for a bit when, she had kids. But did I get it because she used to smoke? That was what the theory was, is, well, you used to smoke quite a bit, so maybe your kid has asthma because of that history there. But none of the others have asthma. And on Thursday, having a chat about COVID and all of that sort of thing, and the interactions with the body, turns out there's this really high link between asthma and endometriosis. So I found out that I had endo. I was suspected a couple of years ago, but I didn't actually go down the pathway to work out what was going on until I came off the pill, because most kids, you have some period issues in high school, which were all flags for things like endometriosis and PCOS. But do you think that the doctor really bothered looking into it? No, you go straight onto the pill as a 16-year-old, and 13 years later, you come off the pill and your body just starts to disintegrate. And I'd always gone, yeah, like my skin's all clear now. I did have some issues in high school, but it's pretty good. It's probably because I'm a vegan. You come off the pill and you go, oh, good, wonderful, thank you, hormone. This is nice to meet you. I'm glad you're back. So you go from everyone being like, oh, your skin's so clear, and me being like, yeah, thanks, I'm a vegan. That's why it's all really nice. And now, and then you start to have these issues pop up and you go, people are going to blame my diet for this. I've had bowel issues on and off for years, and I'd even had issues with my iron before being vegan. But of course, now that I'm vegan, people go, is it because of your diet? But there is record of that happening when I was at uni, because I was run down, I was falling asleep at school, I couldn't work out what was going on, like literally falling asleep in a lecture theatre because I couldn't keep my eyes open. And to this day, still not sure, was it because of the iron level being a little bit low? Was it because of something that I was eating or some other gut issue? And I after chatting to a vegan friend who had SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, so this is actually Bella from Bella's Vegan Adventures, and she said, well, have you ever looked into something like SIBO? This is someone that you could talk to about it. And so I spoke to him, but I went through this process at the start of last year of being on antibiotics. I spent 9 weeks on this very heavy antibiotic, a very high dose, to try to control this overgrowth of bacteria. And every time we had a consult, because you only wanted to be on it for as short a period as possible, because there were other more natural ways of dealing with SIBO, but you couldn't get it into Australia. It was all overseas. Nothing was coming in because of COVID, and it was all horrifically expensive. So I went for the expensive antibiotic instead. Like, I'm talking $500. If you did have an underlying condition that was relevant to what that antibiotic's typically for, you could get it for $40. For treating something else, $500, and 3 rounds of that. And I kept going, I'm not feeling better. I wish I could tell you, but I'm not feeling better. My stomach still hurts. Is it because I'm on my period? I don't know what's going on. And so I ended up spending longer on the antibiotics, but never knowing if it was getting the SIBO under control, because I still felt like crap. And so from there I went, okay, I probably should actually follow up this endo possible stuff, because I'm having these issues, and I'd come off the pill with all of the skin stuff coming back. And it's now more than 2 years since coming off the pill, and my body's only just sort of starting to normalize from that and get back in sync. And because the longer you are on the pill, the harder it is to come off of it. And the real catalyst, I guess, for me coming off the pill is I was thinking, sitting there going, is the pill vegan? It's probably not vegan. I bet it's not vegan. I should probably come off of it. I mean, I'd already been thinking of coming off of it, but now that I'm thinking it's probably not vegan, I'm going to come off of it. So I went, ethically, I don't think it sits that well with me. And then there's just all the other issues that it does cause with your body. And if you can avoid having that hormonal influence, and it's better to regulate your body in another way, there will be people with underlying health conditions that, you know, may need to be on the pill for the rest of their life just to manage their symptoms, which is what my gyno was advising me. Unfortunately, there's only so many ways to manage something that doesn't have enough research about it. So last year it went diagnosed with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. And that ties into, you know, bleeding mid-cycle as well. So bleeding around ovulation and other pain. It's not typically a real pain thing. So even though from my history, the gyno went, oh, I want to get you checked for PCOS. Like, well, why would you do that? I don't have PCOS. So why are we checking for that? And then it came back and she's like, okay, so you do have PCOS. So things we need to look out for. Well, I wanted you to go and get checked for diabetes, because that is one of the highest risks with it. And, you know, if you get diabetes and all of these other things, it's a comorbidity type thing, and then you'll die pretty much. So here, yeah, you'll have PCOS, you'll have other chronic diseases, and then you'll die. And also you're probably going to end up being infertile. Like, it was a bad day. This was a bad conversation, about 90 seconds running through the, all right, wonderful. So that's the future. Cool. And I can't do anything to fix it. Right. Awesome. That's great. As someone who likes to be able to have control over things around, which I think most people like to have control, but I'm not someone who's going to go, cool, like I can't do anything about that. I'm used to being able to take charge of my own health. And with most diseases, you can go, well, all right, cool. If I have this, I can eat this way. I can do this healthy thing. I can exercise and I can fix the problem. I have a sprained ankle. I can, you know, train it and get stronger and fix the problem. And even with heart disease and a lot of those things, unless it's a congenital abnormality, often you can make huge improvements by changing the way that you live and managing stress and all of that. So when someone turns around and goes, there's literally nothing you can do about it, this is just what it is, and look, you may not be able to have kids, and you kind of go, all right, awesome. So I've got my referral to go and get this, you know, diabetes check, which was fine. I did say, oh, I'm not going to have diabetes because I'm a vegan. and she's like, oh, but that's a lot of sugar that, you know, that that you eat as a vegan. There's a lot of fruit. But fruit is good, and I know because I've listened to like Simon Hill and all the doctors he's interviewed, so I'm pretty sure. And if anything, it was like on the low end of it, because my body's used to metabolizing whole foods, and so when I had this sugary drink, my body's gotten through it really quickly, and it's gone, oh right, where's the rest of the food and the fiber we thought was with this sugary drink? It's not. Okay, now we're really tired. Okay. So that's what kind of happens if you're not used to having a lot of processed stuff. So that then turned into, because I wasn't willing to have a laparoscopy, she said, I still think you could have endometriosis with what's going on. You'll have to take time off of work. This is, you know, what will happen. If you want to have it, you can have it. And I wanted to get some sign that I had endo before taking time off work, because I'm a contractor. I don't get paid. My patients will have to see someone else, and they're used to my care and the way that we do things. Like, we have a relationship. So me just taking time off really affects their care as well. So that's something that's always in the back of your mind. And so when we're talking about the surgery, I go, well, I want to know I have endo before I go in to have a laparoscopy. And we did an internal ultrasound, and they couldn't really see any signs of endo. And I went, well, let's ignore it for a little bit. But then there was all of the going on the antibiotics and going, this is just not helping. I had a visit to the emergency room in pain, and eventually went to my doctor, heaps of other tests, blood tests, stool tests, urine tests, everything, trying to work out what it was. They thought it could have been like a gallbladder thing, but that wasn't coming up fine. And so because of that pain, I went, look, what else can we do? And my doctor gave me a referral for a pelvis MRI, which showed endo on it. And sometimes it will not show up on any scans. You could be absolutely riddled with endo and is not visible on an ultrasound or an MRI. It's very hard to detect. Gold standard is having a laparoscopy, because that way they go, all right, cool, let's get in and cut it out. They can burn it out. So ablation is where they burn it out, or excision is where they cut it out. But the way there's actually a book called, if anyone listening to this hasn't read How to Endo, it's really, really quite helpful. So I read that for a few more things, but it's kind of like having a splinter, the way it described in there, having a splinter in your finger and burning off the splinter, but like leaving some splinter as if you cut it off and then you pull the splinter out. So there's, you know, definitely reasons that both can work very, very well for people. But I was lucky that my gynecologist is a excision sort of specialist, like endometriosis is her bread and butter. So I had that surgery in August last year. So, and again, endometriosis, similar with PCOS, is there's not enough research about it. There's not enough awareness. Most people don't know about these things until they're being diagnosed. And so they go into this world of unknown, realizing that they have a chronic incurable disease that can cause them pain at any point, and it can be found on every organ of the body. And it has been found. It's been found on someone's brain. Someone was having, I believe, seizures, and they had a scan and they found endometrial tissue, or endometriosis tissue rather, because it's similar to the endometrial lining, but it is not the same. It is a different type of tissue that grows and grow anywhere. And mine was deep infiltrating endometriosis. So it was all on the inside of my pelvic wall on the left side. It was all over my bladder as well. So frequent urination and that sort of thing, you know, it was causing all sorts of issues with work. So like, I have to time pee breaks for myself. I know I don't have diabetes because I'm a vegan. And I mean, vegans can have diabetes as well. But again, it's one of those diseases that unfortunately you can't out eat. They don't know why you have it. You can try to manage symptoms with diet and lifestyle, but you often won't actually have control. I mean, I had an MRI just before Christmas because a lot of the symptoms returned, and that showed evidence of the endo growing back. So that's not something that you really want to find out like 3 months after your surgery. Yeah, cool, that didn't last very long. But yeah, having an underlying chronic condition is not ideal, but you can't just sort of stop. You just kind of have to keep going and try to find a new way of doing things and living things and making it, I guess, part of your life and doing what you can by being healthy and fit and strong. And because I went into the surgeries relatively, because I had a second surgery 6 weeks later because they found a hernia. Anyway, that aside, like I said, accident prone, probably from that work. So I didn't lose too much muscle during that time, which was very lucky. I kept a lot of my strength as well. I didn't stop. I was still moving when I could. I didn't use it as an excuse to sort of just sit and eat like 5 huge cakes a day because, you know, I was feeling, you know, really crummy. I still ate quite healthy. I was still eating a predominantly whole food plant-based diet, and I believe that that helped to keep a decent amount of muscle tone, reduce my inflammation. Like even in the hospital after the laparoscopy, they were very impressed by how quickly I was pooping. So that's good. I was in for 2 nights and I'm like, now have you passed wind? And I was like, I pooped this morning. And they're like, really? Like, yeah, it was all the plants I eat. So that was quite funny. And my gyno, when she came in to, you know, to see me, to discharge me, she went, you know, you've probably responded quite well because you are fit and healthy and looking after yourself. So I guess ties back to that stuff of just being as healthy as you possibly can and doing everything. And if you have that power, why would you not want to have as much power over your life as you can? Especially with diet and lifestyle. Yes, we are subject to marketing and the whatever our families and parents have put on us as a child. But if you learn it and you go, well, actually, I do have some power over these things, why would you not want to take it and have some sort of control rather than letting things happen to you and just going, well, no, I'm happy to just, you know, eat my way into a grave. Because I'm not happy to do that. I want to set a good example for my niece, my nephew, if we do have kids. You know, I want to be able to give them the healthiest and best life that they can on hopefully a healthier planet. So, yeah.
I'm guessing, you know, to have been diagnosed with endometriosis, you know, at age under 30, it would have been quite daunting. But as you said, you've really like applied yourself to learn about it and then also really spread that message and awareness because, as you said, like it's something that's not quite well known. It is getting more well known within society, but, you know, like, as you said, it's not well known how people get it, what the cause is. And so that would be very frustrating. And, you know, to some people, it could be almost debilitating. But, you know, for yourself, we've really been able to move past that and think, you know, you want a long, healthy life. So what can you do on a daily basis that results in you having that?
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. Because if this is going to be something and you'll have some more down moments where you kind of go, cool, all right, so this pain that I'm experiencing, I can't do anything. I could pop some pills to manage it, but I can't do anything about it. And I don't want to take medication. I don't want to put things into my body that I don't need to, that are going to have other side effects. So especially when you are in pain, and because there's definitely still been like a lot of pain, and because having the surgery can sometimes trigger some other pain. Sometimes, you know, it can settle down as it gets further away, or it could kind of, I guess, awaken some other pains that you didn't have. And then there's the inflammation, potential scar tissue, and repeat surgeries tend to result in more issues. The more surgeries you have, the more likely you are to be infertile and to have PCOS and endo there as well. Like that's sort of a double whammy. And like I say, I'm a relatively healthy person, and I have been vegan for, you know, over 5 years. So if I could eat it on like a whole food plant-based diet, like my next step would be to go like raw vegan or something really extreme to see if that would kind of fix what's going on, because I don't drink alcohol. I'm predominantly refined sugar-free as well. I don't cook with oil. It'll only be if I'm out somewhere that I might have something. Most of the time when I'm out, I have a smoothie bowl because that's less likely to cause any triggers or aggravation. So my whole life is focused on trying to eat things that aren't going to cause me pain or discomfort or interrupt my fitness goals or anything else like that. So it's something that's always there, and yeah, you can try and be as positive as possible, but you know it's always there. And when you wake up in like tears because you're in excruciating pain because your period's just started and it feels like someone's stabbing you in the stomach with a knitting needle, that's not like a really happy place to kind of be in. But again, I'm very lucky to have a partner who will bring me my TENS machine and a hot pack or an ice pack if that's what I need. And they'll bring me some peppermint tea because I'm just curled up going, I'm not moving for the rest of the day. So, and I didn't really have that sort of like 10 out of 10 pain prior to surgery. So there's definitely been an escalation in some aspects with regards to that. So it's definitely something to consider how to go. And with some people, it can grow a little bit faster. Really, the only way to know would be to have another laparoscopy and see how much did regrow. But then again, that worsens the chance of, if you are wanting to have kids, you know, having that other laparoscopy and you're most fertile after your surgery. So you don't want to wait too long because there's too much time for your body to retaliate. So you're better off if you go, you know what, we're going to start trying for a kid in a year's time, find another way to manage it, time your surgery so that you can have that, and then start trying like 4 to 6 weeks afterwards, if that's what you were wanting to do. This is all stuff that you find out and you learn, and you have to just live your life, because they don't teach it in school, and they absolutely should. They should teach vegan stuff in school. They should teach you where your food comes from, what these foods could potentially lead to later in life. Like, they're not going to go, hey, eating all of this spinach is going to result in this disease later in your life. Like, that's not going to be the conversation. It's going to be like, all of these fruits and vegetables, they are all fantastic and they will help you fight disease. This is what could happen if you have these, and this is where this food actually comes from. So be conscious of how you eat if you want to have the healthiest and longest life, if you want to have the best chance if you do contract COVID or anything else. So, because, you know, there'll probably be some other sort of super virus thing that will come, you know, there will, if depending on what the trends are actually like we're seeing this really drawn out process right now. But yeah, it is daunting to have something like that you can't have and you have no power over. And for me, for someone who is like, no, I'm going to do stuff. I'm not a controlling person, but I probably sound like it in this, but I do like to, I guess it's a combination of kind of being a leader and going, this is how this goes, this is how this goes. Like, I'm a task delegator and I delegate myself tasks of like, this is what I do to be healthy and happy. And then someone kind of like comes in and starts messing up my tasks. So it's kind of rude.
So if people listening, you know, really resonate with your story, are you happy for them to reach out if they've got any questions or would like to understand your experience a bit more?
Yeah, no, absolutely. They can definitely reach out. They can find me at Earthy Yasmine on Instagram. If with messages, it gets filtered into the other folder. So sometimes it's good because I will always try to, at least on my most recent post, I go back and check every single comment. So if you have an actual question regarding it, like just put a comment there. So if I have somehow missed it in those ones, then at least I'll see that comment and I'll go, all right, I'm going to specifically look for that name because I know they've got a question for me and I want to follow that up. So yeah, you can definitely get in touch with me that way. It's really the only social media that I use publicly. Facebook is kind of, it's all on the ground now.
Exactly. And I wondered, I have been intrigued since knowing you on social media, I have been intrigued about your name. What is the reason behind Earthy Yasmine?
Well, I suppose when I was putting together my Instagram account, it was really big to have, I guess, partly your name and then partly something. And I've considered changing it to something else that's more vegan or chiropractic related, but I couldn't think of something that I went, yes, that's the name to go with. So if I'm ever going to change it, I'm going to change it to something that I go, well, this is the name that I want it to stay at. This is aligned with the business that I'm going to have. So I haven't really thought to change it, but there was like Naturally Stephanie, Earthy Andy, and all of these sorts of things. I'm like, what kind of goes with my name and doesn't look awkward? And I tried like a couple of different combos. I went, you know what, that works. Let's just do that. And so there's no reason behind it.
I did wonder if it was because, I noticed that some of your content, you also do consider, the footprint of different products and, being a bit more sustainable in your lifestyle. So I wondered if part of it was, got to do with being a bit more conscious around that sort of footprint we have.
It's definitely part of it as well. Like, it did just feel aligned, and sometimes you will have something what, that feels right, and it's because of that sort of thing. And another one of the pageants that I did was Miss Earth Australia, and that was all about environmentalism and all of that sort of thing, and that was in 2019. Made the top 10 in that one, so that was good fun. Was the only vegan there, funnily enough. And me standing on a stage with, however 150 guests there on tables and trying to spin my question about veganism. It wasn't totally relevant, probably didn't help me out, but I was like, all right, how can I tell people to eat more plants up here? So I managed it though. So and doing, I guess, Miss Earth Australia, and I think possibly my name was like Yasmine JL, like my middle and last name at some point, but I changed it maybe a few years ago, and I went, oh yeah, like that lines up with all of that. So I don't know how long it's been Earthy Yasmine for. It may have been something beforehand, but what is even time? I don't know.
Exactly. And do you have any plans of anything in the future, whether it be in your personal life, in your business? Is there anything that you'd like to share?
So I suppose something I've wanted to do for a really long time, like many people on Instagram. I want to have my own fitness business, one of the many around there. And I suppose I would like to do a program, and it's stuff that I have started working on. I even have a business name, which has even been trademarked. That's how far I got into it. But then all of the endo stuff came up, and it kind of put my life on hold. Like, I was in the process of getting the business logo and everything up, but that's something that I would like to be resuming, and sort of creating more of a meal plan and a fitness plan that is less inflammatory to people who feel like they don't have control. They don't know how to take control of what is happening with themselves and their body, and perhaps they are struggling and they've got injuries, and they keep being told, do HIIT exercises and all of this, dynamic jumping and squatting and things that are aggravating to your body and often cause your body to go like this, and it does the opposite. Instead, you start holding back. You go, where is my muscle? I keep, yo-yoing and can't get anything to stick because what you're doing is aggravating your body. So my goal is to create a program, a fitness program, and sort of a diet program that is only less inflammatory for people who are suffering from other stuff or having trouble with their goals, because they don't necessarily have to have any underlying chronic disease to still be struggling with it. They may not know, they may not even be diagnosed with something that's actually been holding them back from their fitness goals and even realize it. But if I can give them a few tips to help them manage it so that they don't end up in a world of pain later in their life, or on all of these medications just to get through the day, they can be fitter and healthier and stronger, and understand that it is a lifestyle. It's a how can I be as healthy as possible for life, not just aesthetics. Like, that's kind of where I want to go, is develop a program that would be open to both males and females. I imagine as a female, I'll probably attract more females, but anyone who could do it, whether they identify as female or male or not. So just something that suits me, I know is going to suit a lot of other people. So hopefully my story will help them find some passion in living as healthy a life as possible. And in that way, they will look into more plant foods. They will start being more interested in that sort of thing, because I suppose, again, the sort of vegan that I respond well to and am drawn to are those that manage to influence people to start trying those things and get there. Because, like, again, for me, it was a bit slower, and we need vegans for every type of person. So mine is more talking to people about food and how it can kind of benefit them, and then easing that conversation to, and plus it's better for, the animals if you're not eating them, funnily enough, and the environment. So by having a completely vegan, low inflammatory, healthy program that I'm putting out to the world, it will hopefully get people that haven't thought to try that lifestyle to try it out, because so many of the programs. They're even just the diet advice from PCOS Instagram pages and endo pages and all that sort of thing. And they're eating bacon and dairy. They're doing keto. They're doing all of these other yo-yo diets and things. And I think someone was even doing a carnivore diet. Like, there's all these Facebook support pages, and the diets that people are adopting, it might be covering some of their symptoms at the time, but the chronic diseases that they're going to end up with down the track, and not to mention the animals that do suffer as a result of that. So if I can influence a few people to eat a plant-based meal like that, then that is a positive thing. So that's the goal, is to sort of keep raising awareness for lots of those things. Like, I don't have a niche because I'm sort of, finger in so many pots. But yeah, something that will help people and help the animals. So that's what I'm hoping to do with my page, and make people laugh along the way.
Yes, I did notice that you implemented Christmas jokes, and I noticed that some of them have been sticking around. So that's a little side hustle for you, comedian, part-time.
Of course, naturally. So if, all the chiro and the fitness stuff doesn't work out, I'm just going to become a professional, hilarious comedian.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of content around veganism.
Laughing. Yeah, very possibly. I mean, there is that stand-up comedian who had he halfway through his show, he's like, so I'm a vegan. And we went into this whole line. Everyone's probably seen that on social media, but that thing makes me laugh so hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's Preacher Lawson, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, it makes me really wish that he would come to Australia so I can actually see it, because I'm pretty sure he's American, isn't he?
Yeah, me too. Yeah, no, I saw that recently and I started following him, and he's a brilliant comedian. I love that he integrated that in there. It was pure gold.
Definitely. Like, all the stuff that we actually do encounter, like you hear about these things, and then as a vegan, they're actually said to you, like, I thought people were kidding, but this stuff's actually happening to me. What?
No, couldn't agree more. So is there anything that we might have missed that you wanted to discuss before we finish up?
I think we've probably gone over a decent chunk of stuff, from pageants to vegan to chronic health disease and everything kind of in between. So we'll leave it there for now. And I guess if people come back with a lot of questions, we can always do it again.
Exactly. No, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much. And do you happen to have a favourite quote that you would like to finish the episode with?
The one that always comes to mind when people ask me about quotes is Hakuna Matata. It's an amazing quote. It means no worries if you haven't heard the song before. And it's not necessarily how I live my life, but it is, like, I'm a stressor. So for me, I think it's a good reminder about it, and it takes me back to happy childhood memories, other than the whole, Mufasa, oh no, star. Other than that stuff, it takes me back to childhood and happiness, and watching that and trying to live life and leave things behind that you don't need to burden yourself with, which is probably the biggest takeaway, because not everything's going to be in your control. So.
Yeah. No, that's very true. Well, thank you so much, Yasmine. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing everything that's in your future. It's really exciting that you're looking. I think, even though you personally said you don't think you have a niche, I definitely think you do, in terms of, trying to help people using a plant-based diet and, certain fitness, like, sort of regime, to be able to reduce inflammation and deal with some of chronic pain. So I think that's really exciting.
Thank you so much, and thank you for listening to all of my rambling stories.
All right, well, thank you. Take care.